Hey everyone, thank you for coming to my talk. Welcome to day 2. Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be in Warsaw. So I'm going to talk today about Web3, Agentic Web3, future of public good. When I started out in Web3 a long time ago, I was very much focused on the idea of public good and public good projects. I perhaps naively thought that this would be a focus as the time went by. Fortunately, it tended not to be. We've ended up more with meme coins than public good. But I think there's a change coming anyway now, certainly with the use of large language models and Agentic Web3. I think this is going to have quite an impact on Web3. And so I want to explore what the role is, how this is going to impact public good projects. If you would like to follow along, these slides are available here. You can scan the code. We have lots of resources available for you as well. We have courses about Agentic Web3 at our academy, so please make use of those. Okay, so I want to explore how autonomous agents can help with collective problems. As I say, I think there is a paradigm shift going to be happening with the way that Web3 is being used because of the use of autonomous agents. Of course, there is something of a sliding scale here. We already have a lot of automatic interactions anyway, and I think it's going to be particularly interesting when and if we see true autonomy with agents. Now, I'm sure I don't have to remind you of some of the fundamentals about Web3, but these obviously play into the kind of projects that we are building and the types of behavior that we'll get from those. And certainly the focus now has moved. We've got much more focus now on things like DeFi. I think it's interesting thinking about DAOs. Again, when I started out, these were an exciting concept, and there we had the idea of the autonomy there, the idea that there would be rules that would be governing the way that a company worked, and with the governance of projects. It had a setback when we had the DAO, and they kind of got a bad name, but they've continued, and I think we're obviously seeing them they're certainly involved much more now around things like governance of DeFi. So it's going to be interesting to see how these will be impacting as well with the agentic side. So, the idea of autonomous agents. Of course, we do have already many automatic processes happening, transactions being done automatically without human intervention, but there's perhaps more to autonomy than that. I had this exciting idea many years ago, the idea of things being completely autonomous, the idea that you could have something like a self-driving taxi that could run independently, it could make money for itself, it could store its own crypto and then decide itself what it wanted to do with that, all without human intervention. And with the complexity that we get now with Agentic Web3 and with the AI side, I think we do have the ability to have more autonomy. And I think it's going to be a very exciting time. Of course, we've evolved from very simple systems to things like large language models, which are much more complex and they can do much more complex behavior, much more sophisticated behavior, and make much more sophisticated decisions. But they do have limitations. I'm sure if you've worked with something like a large language model for a while, you'll understand that the context that they can work with can be limited, and this can produce problems as you add more and more context with your interaction with them. And of course, it's the idea of the ethical reasoning. There's nothing there to give them any ethical background unless that is built in, and then that is part of the training that they receive and the data that they are built upon. So, these intersect. So we're now seeing lots of agents on blockchain, and these are producing their own transactions. And as I say, it's interesting to see how autonomous these things can truly be. In theory, they can be. I think it's going to be very interesting when we see agents that are making their own crypto, and then they can decide to host themselves. They can use the crypto that they've earned to supply their own hosting and then run completely independently of humans. It's going to be an interesting time. But I don't think the future is going to be the agents running completely independently of each other. There's going to be multi-agent systems. We're going to get the idea of specialization within agents. But I'm going to come on to this a little bit later. But it's important, I think, to the idea that we could have these autonomous actors that actually have some interest, they have some skin in the game. So, thinking about public goods, what kind of things do I mean? Well, there are, obviously lots of different types of projects. There's this idea of the non-rivalrous, non-excludable resources, the things where we can take part in these projects, but by individually taking part, we're not taking things from other people. And one of the advantages of blockchain and the fact that we can have tokenization is that we can then help to solve some of the problems we get with things like tragedy of the commons, and we can use tokenization to incentivize that and to make sure that there's not concentration and resources are not being concentrated just for a few people. I'll come on to the environmental monitoring, got an example of that in a second. But there's lots of topics, lots of projects in this area that could be very interesting. Public health obviously is potentially very good. It's always been problematic because of the privacy aspect. We have to be very careful about having any kind of health data, any patient's data on any kind of blockchain. So we do need privacy to help with that, and that obviously needs to be secure, but also there's all sorts of legal and compliance issues around that as well. As I say, an example of environmental monitoring. There's this thing from Robonomics where they've got environmental sensors to monitor the air quality in this case. So, we can build these projects, we can do things that are designed for public good, and blockchain certainly has a role in that. Regenerative finance became quite an interesting topic perhaps a few years ago. And perhaps from there we will get, that will help bring some of the DeFi aspects and help bring along the ideas of public goods as well. Of course, when we're doing this, we need to understand whether these projects, these public goods, are actually providing good. And so we do need things like oracles to verify this. We need some kind of metrics. And this aspect is one that I think is potentially a little bit problematic with the AI as well. I'll explain that in a second. Now, a lot of frameworks are available. If you want to build agents, a lot of frameworks are available to help you with this. I've just got some here. There are other ones as well. If you're interested in building agents, as I say, if you go to our Academy website, we've got lots of resources there that can help you. But there are big players getting involved now. So we've got people like Google who have their agent dev kit that you can use then to build agents. It's not necessarily focused on Web3, but you can use it for that as well. And there is the more general protocol, the MCP, that is there to standardize interactions between agents and systems. So if we're doing this, what are the challenges? What do we have to be careful about? So scalability is always a problem in blockchain. I don't know if I need to say much more about that. The Oracle problem, we do need to connect things on chain to get off-chain data, and that needs to be secure. And reliable, and this can be problematic for the agentic side as well, making sure that they are acting on reliable data. Of course, they're not going to act in isolation; they're going to be acting across different protocols. So we need to have the ability to do that. One of the most important things, I think, certainly is the security. Obviously, my company's an auditing company as well. We've been involved in security, and so we've seen really that over over the years that security is still quite a major problem in Web3, and certainly this is just going to increase. Having agentic Web3 is an additional really attack surface there, and privacy as well. It's interesting. I often give talks about ZK and the privacy aspect, and it's for me that's a really important thing, and maybe for a lot of people in Web3 that's super important as well. But I think that maybe we're in a little bit of a bubble, and for a lot of people they're not so concerned about that. But certainly, if we're doing things with public good, and as the example I mentioned with healthcare, this is obviously a massive, potentially a massive problem if any of the patient data leaks. And then looking at the non-technical aspects, we've got challenges on the ethical and regulatory side. So who controls the agents? How do we do governance? Are there going to be humans within the loop to do this? And as a society, are we ready for this? And I think certainly the answer to that at the moment is no. People are only just beginning to start to think about the impact of AI and the kinds of decisions that are being made and how that is going to fit into the established legal and compliance frameworks that we have. And that always takes time. We're always going to be a little bit ahead on the technological side from where we are on the compliance and the legal side. One point as well that is problematic, the causal point I have here, is the fact that it's often difficult for the current AI to understand sort of cause and effect and understand what may have started some behavior and what would be the impact of a certain type of behavior. And this, I think, is important for public good projects, because that is going to, we need to understand that the goods part of it, the good part of it, is having the right kind of impact. And I was given an example that with charities, this can be, sometimes the sort of regulators have to come into charities because there's a concentration. There are too many trends, and certain charities don't get the funding that they need just because certain things are super popular. So that kind of thing is very difficult for AI to understand, and that is something that we need help with on the research side. And then the data biases, of course. With AI, we have the potential problem that the type of decisions that are being made, well, of course, they're very much dependent on the data that they are trained with, but then how do you take care that that data doesn't have biases? So all of these are problems. Which moves in then to the accountability aspect as well. If you have an agent making a decision, it does something in a project, who is responsible for that? If it's acting at all autonomously, presumably the agent is responsible, but then how can we build that into our framework that we have of our sort of traditional legal and compliance framework? So what kind of things do we need to do to get a better kind of architecture? How can we build something and promote something that is going to work and help agents do something in public good? Well, I think initially we've got humans in the loop. That is obviously going to be true, and they're going to be needed for critical decisions, with maybe agents doing the lower risk decisions. But then that's not autonomous. So over time, we're potentially going to move away from that. But there are some projects, there are some things we need that will help with this. Things like decentralized identity. We've got a lot of standards around that. So potentially that is something that we could have. Also very interesting, the idea of reputation systems. These maybe have a mixed reputation as an idea. People sometimes don't like the idea of introducing a reputation system into a project, thinking that shows a failure in the project. But the way that this could work on the agentic side is that agents could then see each other's reputations and decide to interact with each other based on some type of reputation. But of course, if you do that, then how do you judge the reputation? And this comes back to the idea of having reliable oracles and reliable metrics that agents can pick up on. An interesting idea also, the intent-centric architecture, is the idea that we could have some behavior that is where we specify a high-level intent. We say we want the agent to do something at a very high level, and then we have specialized agents that are solvers that go in and decide how that can be achieved. And I think this term I've come up with here, computational philanthropic ethics, is a new idea that I think we need to research into. We need to understand how autonomous agents can act in potentially an ethical way. So I haven't got much time, but I'll just finish off with some further questions. Can agents generally be altruistic? Will they be altruistic? And if so, what form is that going to take? We tend to think of the altruism being towards humans, but why would that necessarily be the case? And if they're autonomous agents, would they be altruistic to humans or altruistic to other agents? And is there a difference anyway? How would we deal with that? And the part of this could be dependent upon the way that the agents are trained and the AI is trained. And so as a society, but certainly as developers and developers of these types of systems, the way that we train them and the data sets that we use is going to influence this. And potentially we can influence this. We can influence the way that agents and that AI is going to make decisions by the data that they are provided with. So I think that is an area that perhaps is not, I'm not sure how much is recognized at the moment, but I think could potentially be quite useful. And there could be almost races on to get data to be picked up and used for training to influence AI and to influence the types of decisions that they make. And the question, is this any kind of altruism a likely outcome? Unless we do something to develop it. Now, I think the answer to that is no. I mean, the agents are going to be completely neutral. And so if we want any kind of altruistic behavior or any particular behavior in any direction, really, then as developers, as builders of systems, we need to be building that into the system. So developers have a very large role there. So where are we going with this? Well, I think in the near term, we're going to have humans in the loop. They're going to be providing oversight of the way that agents work. Moving on, we'll get more autonomy. So we'll have agents, systems of agents that are self-sustaining. And then hopefully in the long term, there will be autonomous agents that can help make the public good projects more efficient and help them to deliver their public goods. But in order to do that, as I say, we do need to build this in. So it needs to be built in, and the idea of public goods needs to be built in as a first principle and not just an afterthought. So we're at a very exciting time. There's lots of challenges in the way that the agentic sphere is moving and how this is going to develop. It is evolving very rapidly. It's going to be very important how we develop incentives. One idea that we are working on is the idea on the security side of incentivizing agents to be careful about security and to look for security problems again. But that's just on the security side. You could do this in any kind of incentive. But how this develops at the moment, this is very much up to us. I'm thinking particularly of the developers. But obviously in the future, as they become more autonomous, then maybe humans will be taken out of the loop. Okay, that's everything from me. Thank you very much for coming to my talk. I hope you enjoy the rest of the day at the conference. Thank you.
Do we have any questions? Oh, lots of questions. How exciting. Thanks.
Hi, this is Maciej. You said that regarding these ethical questions of agents, they might be neutral. I might say that they would rather be efficient. This is probably the metric they would be act upon. And here, the question you brought regarding acting for community good is actually a philosophical question, because we know how it works with people. People are driven by different values, be it religion, be it constitution, be it values coming from literature, from role models and so on. But we don't know how it works with agents so far. And from my perspective, this is currently mainly efficiency. And what do you think? What set of values or guardrails can we set up in terms of somehow common commandments, whatever we call it, in order to not let those agents be ethical, or rather inbuild somehow ethical constitution for them or commandments for them, like there is Asimov laws of robotics and that robots cannot harm humans and so on.
Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you for the question. I think that's quite true. Certainly, the way that people are developing agents, they're going to be looking at probably efficiency. But there is, I think, I said they're going to be neutral. There is perhaps a background though with the way that AI, things like large language models work, that comes from the data that they are trained on, and so that potentially is going to influence the way that they make decisions. At the moment, they are trained to. Thinking of large language models, they are trained to work in a certain way and to avoid certain situations and avoid acting and doing things. So there are some kind of ethics built in there. But this is very much dependent upon the training and the companies that produce these. And therefore, we have a great centralization risk. We have very big companies who are deciding this. And if they decide they want to train them in a different way, make them different, then there's a potential problem. But I think you're quite right. I think a lot of the development of agents is going to be focusing on efficiency. And if we want ethics, then we're going to have to think of ways to build that in. And one way is to provide incentives. But how we can do that at the moment, I don't think is 100% clear. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. We have time for one more quick question. So there we go, sir.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Nico from Octant. We've been funding public goods for 2 years using yield from Ethereum staking. So this is a very interesting talk on what the future of that will look like. So I was wondering if you've seen already any experiments in that direction that use AI to fund public goods?
Not particularly. Not on the autonomous agent side at the moment. It's fairly early days, I think. I think the way that it's been picked up people have tended to use these for things like DeFi, and we're getting the bots doing lots of trading and that kind of thing. And the public goods side has perhaps been left behind a bit. But please do integrate them. Please.
Yeah, I actually know a couple of them, so I'll come to you and tell you about it later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Laurence has given one more large round of applause.